Hello, dear friends. Current politics does not interest the white hats because they see a corrupt system. Opinion piece. Galactic Society. Time is art. Political dualism. Extreme polarization. Opinion is not a crime. The future is holographic. Opinion followers. Conformist mentality. Persecution of dissent. Informed decision making. Let's start. Some messages have used the metaphor of holography to describe certain aspects of a galactic society. Holography is a process in which a three-dimensional image is created from the interaction of light on a special surface, meaning that each part of the image contains information about the entire image. A holographic community would be a galactic political system, a type of society that operates under the precepts of high ethics, equality, and service to others, where the idea of a world of prosperity, trust, solidarity, shared evolution, and much peace is shared, seeking to empower human beings and respecting their free will, which would end the intolerance towards other people's opinions, which is increasing every day in our society. The holographic society is or holistic society would be made up of tied councils and is used in advanced civilizations, in communities that have a large number of inhabitants, and it is a system that adapts to the needs of each culture according to messages from the stars Sirius and Arthur. Sirius is the brightest star in the night sky, and Arthur is the third, or Arcturus is the third brightest star. Tips. According to the Spanish Earth Council, this system is made up of several councils with a staggered distribution, and ultimately there is what is called the High Council. The councils begin in the towns. These in turn have one above them that represents the populations, cities, regions, countries, continents, and finally a High Council that represents all being on the planet. Each established council carries the same format, covering all important areas required for the development of the individuals of the holographic society. The council of a smaller area must be able to resolve and decide all actions that support the continuation of the functioning and development of all the individuals present there, thus covering everything necessary for the sustenance of the society it encompasses. In addition, to serve as a link in matters of exchange or balance with other minor councils and also towards higher regional, planetary, and stellar councils. Time is art. José Argüelles made the phrase time is art fashionable. It is a poetic way of expressing the importance of valuing time and using it creatively and meaningfully. Time, in its constant flow, can be appreciated and valued in the same way that a work of art is appreciated. This implies that we must pay attention to the present moment and enjoy each moment as if it were a unique work of art. Another interpretation could be that the creative and conscious use of time can be a form of aesthetic expression. In this sense, people could consider planning and using their time as a personal art form in which they can express their interests, passions, and values. It could also be interpreted that time is a tool that allows personal evolution and transformation. By using time wisely and productively, human beings can develop and grow, which could be considered an art form in itself. Analogy. Extrapolating this idea to a holographic society, some might suggest that in modern society, information and culture are distributed in a dispersed and decentralized manner, and that each individual or group that has access to a part of that culture and contributes to the creation of the complete image of society. In a holographic society, diversity of opinions, cultures, and perspectives are valued, and we seek to promote inclusion and tolerance, working to ensure that all citizens have access to essential services such as education, healthcare, housing, and employment, seeks a more equitable distribution of economic and social resources to reduce the gap between rich and poor, and encourages shared decision making and the participation of a wide range of people in governance and decision making instead of concentration of power in a few individuals or groups. A non pyramidal society is a term used to describe a social structure in which there is no rigid hierarchy or pyramid of power, as found in pyramidal societies. In a non pyramidal society, a greater degree of equality, equitable distribution of power and access to resources, and broader participation in decision making are sought. This can be manifested through consulting citizens on important issues. In a non pyramidal society, equal rights and opportunities are promoted for all members, regardless of their origin, gender, race, religion, or other characteristics. There is no perfectly egalitarian society, but many societies seek to move towards a less hierarchical and more equitable structure, in which the rights and dignity of all citizens are respected. Pyramidal society. The notion of pyramid society is often used in a critical context to point out inequality and concentration of power, and to advocate for great balance and justice in the distribution of resources and decision making. A pyramid society is a term used to describe a form of social organization in which there is hierarchy or pyramid of power and authority, in which a few occupy the highest levels and have significant control, while the most human beings occupy lower levels and have less power or influence. In this structure, power and resources tend to be concentrated at the top of the pyramid, while the base is usually made up of a large number of individuals with less influence or access to resources. A common characteristic of pyramidal societies is inequality of power and resources, where a few enjoy significant advantages while the majority face disadvantages or limitations in their ability to make decisions or influence important matters. This can manifest itself in different areas, such as politics, economic society, or even business organizations. Political division. Moral hemiplegia is a term sometimes used to describe a moral divide or paralysis in the context of politics, particularly on the left-right political spectrum. This expression is used to highlight the perception that each side of the political divide tends to focus on certain aspects of morality or ethics, but ignore or minimize other equally important aspects. In politics, morality and ethics can influence the beliefs and decisions of individuals and groups. Moral hemiplegia is a criticism that suggests that each side could be more effective and balanced if it considered a broader range of ethical and moral values in its political decision making. Instead of considering a full range of values and ethical principles, political parties tend to focus on a select set of ideological issues that support their agenda, while neglecting or downplaying other aspects that may be equally important. For example, in the context of the left-right political divide, it could be argued that the left often highlights social justice, equality, and human rights as central aspects of its political ethics, but could be criticized for neglecting related issues, with failure to keep their promises, clumsy management of the economy, excessive taxes, or lack of respect for private property. The right, the right often highlights tax relief, individual freedom, and private property as central aspects of its political efforts, but could be criticized for neglecting issues related to social equity, even though it tends to better manage a country's economy. Extremism. Extreme political dualism, sometimes also known as extreme polarization or extreme political polarization, refers to a situation in which political differences and division in a society become extremely intense and polarized. This often leads to a deep divide in society in which political views and beliefs become increasingly opposing and adversarial, often with hostile rhetoric and an unwillingness to compromise or find common ground. Extreme polarization can be detrimental to a country's political and social stability, as it hinders the ability to address important issues and can lead to significant tensions and conflicts in society. Fostering greater dialogue, understanding, and respect between people with different political views is an important challenge in mitigating the negative effects of extreme political dualism. People of different political affiliations avoid constructive dialogue and instead tend to talk only to those who share their political views. Furthermore, in some cases, extreme polarization could even lead to political violence, violent protests, or riots. Polarization. The Spanish philosopher and essayist José Ortega y Gasset, in his work The Rebellion of the Masses, 1930, make a profound criticism of the phenomenon of extreme polarization that the society of his time experienced. But rather than focusing on political issues, he addressed a broader concern about the increasing massification and homogenization of society. In his work, Ortega y Gasset argues that society was increasingly being dominated by what he called the mass man. He was referring to a conformist and homogeneous mentality in which people stopped being autonomous and thinking individuals and became followers of common opinions. This homogenization Homogenization leads to the loss of individuality and creativity, and the emergence of a culture of conformity and mediocrity. That is why he highlighted the importance of individual reflection and civic commitment in making political and social decisions. Ortega y Gasset viewed the mob phenomenon as a threat to civilization in general, as he argued that the mob lacks the capacity for self-government and informed decision-making. He also criticized the lack of responsibility and civic participation of the masses, which, in his opinion, undermines the foundations of democratic society. It's not that. The expression, it's not that, is commonly associated with politics during the Second Spanish Republic, 1931-39. It was pronounced by the Spanish poet Antonio Machado in the context of the political and social tensions that characterized that period in Spain. The phrase is found in a poem titled "The War" by Antonio Machado, and is part of a criticism of the polarization and extremist political violence that was intensifying during the Second Republic. Machado expressed his disappointment and concern about the growing extremism and confrontation between different political and social factions. The phrase, it's not that, reflects his disappointment with the directions politics was taking at the time and his desire for a more moderate and constructive path. Machado's phrase is interpreted as a call to reflection and moderation, urging the parties in conflict to see peaceful solutions instead of resorting to violence and extreme polarization. This era was especially tumultuous, eventually leading to the outbreak of the Spanish Civil War in 1936, a conflict that lasted until 1939 and had devastating consequences for Spain. Confession. Many have asked me about my political ideas, and my answer is that I don't believe in current politics. The power of the priests that I lived through was a nightmare, but the power of the progressives of today is another even worse nightmare, because they are subjects of the new order. What's more, many of the priests from then are the same progressives today who want to interfere in people's lives and dictate to us how we have to live. Therefore, my only aspiration is to defend the few freedoms that we'll still have and try to create a new, more free and supportive world, because the old world cannot be fixed. That said, it is not a statement that aligns precisely with any specific political ideology, such as anarchism, liberalism, or individualism. Instead, it is a mix of personal opinions and concepts regarding politics and society today. My distrust of current politics and perception of corruption suggest a certain degree of political skepticism regarding the conventional system. My idea of defending the few freedoms that remain and seeking to create a freer world could be associated with individualism, which values autonomy and individual freedom. The critique of power can be interpreted as an anti-authoritarian approach where the power of institutions and elites is questioned. My aspiration to create a new, freer, and more supportive world suggests a certain degree of idealism and desire for social change. Any form of coercion, oppression, or abuse of power is strongly criticized. We fight for human rights and social justice. Resistance and the dissemination of information are advocated as a means to change power structures, but the message does not reach the majority. An anti-authoritarian approach is a perspective or position that is characterized by opposing authority or power exercised in a hierarchical and oppressive manner. People with an anti-authoritarian approach tend to distrust authority structures and tend to question and resist control and domination by institutions, governments, leaders, or other authority figures. It is important to highlight that anti-authoritarianism is not a single homogeneous ideology. Rather, it is a set of approaches and perspectives that share opposition to unjust authority and promotion of autonomy and justice. Anti-authoritarians are skeptical of hierarchical structures of power and seek more egalitarian and democratic forms of organization. Valuing individual autonomy and freedom is a key feature of this perspective. It seeks to empower human living beings to make decisions about their own lives. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.